Hello, dear students, wishing you a good day. We have here a cute poem about a schoolmaster. Today, we are going to discuss the poem The Village Schoolmaster, written by Oliver Goldsmith. First of all, we shall discuss about the poet. Oliver Goldsmith was an Anglo-Irish poet. He was not only a poet but also a dramatist, playwright, and novelist. He was born on 10th of November 1728. His father, Charles Goldsmith, mother Anne, and was educated at the Trinity College, Dublin. His major works are The Traveller, Vicar of Wakefield, The Deserted Village, and She Stoops to Conquer. The present poem, The Village Schoolmaster, is an extract from The Deserted Village. The poem opens with a description of a village named Auburn. The poem describes the village in its current state, reporting that it has been abandoned by its residents with its buildings ruined. The pen portrait of the village schoolmaster is one of the most enduring of English literature. The poem gives a character sketch of the village schoolmaster who taught the villagers there. It also gives views of the children and the villagers about the schoolmaster. It is one of the best known poems of the 18th century. Moreover, at the end, Oliver Goldsmith died prematurely early in his age in 1774. He was buried in the Temple Church in London. So before we discuss the poem, I'll read it. Listen carefully. The Village Schoolmaster, written by Oliver Goldsmith. Beside yon straggling fence that skirts the way, with blossomed furze unprofitably gay, there in his mansion skilled to rule, the village master taught his little school. A man severe he was and stern to view. I knew him well, and every truant knew. Well he had the bonding tremblers learned to trace the day's disasters in his morning face. Full well they laughed with counterfeited glee, at all his jokes, for many a joke had he. Full well the busy whisper, circling round, conveyed the dismal tidings when he frowned. Yet he was kind, or if severe in out, the love he bore to learning was in fault. The village all declared how much he knew. 'Twas certain he could write and cipher too. Lands he could measure, terms and tides presage, and even the story ran that he could gauge. In arguing too, the person owned his skill, for even though vanquished, he could argue still. While words of learned length and thundering sound amazed the gazing rustics ranged round, and still they gazed, and still the wonder grew, that one small head could carry all he knew. In the first stanza, beside yon straggling fence that skirts the way, with blossomed furze unprofitably gay, there in his mansion, skilled to rule, the village master taught his little school. Here in this stanza, the poet expresses that The school was situated on the outskirts of the village. Fence that skirts the way, it means beside over there, the barrier made maybe by wood and spreading out around with blossomed furze, it means with flowers and grass inside that area. It means that around the school there is lot of flowers and grass bloom. The village schoolmaster used to teach his little school. He was a highly skilled person and he lived in a mansion and school was located beside his house. The poet says in the second line, unprofitably gay, because now schoolmaster had passed away and no one was there to enjoy. The second stanza, a man severe he was and stern to view. I knew him well and every truant knew. Well had the boarding tremblers learned to trace the day's disasters in his morning face. In the first line we see here, a man severe he was and stern to view. The poet tells about the appearance of the master to the children, that he was strict and he was strict to look as well. Particularly in the second line we see, I knew him well and every truant knew. It means the poet knew the schoolmaster and he tells that even the student who stay away from the school without permission, it means bunk the class without any reason, they also knew the schoolmaster. The third line, well had the boarding tremblers learned to trace. It means the students were afraid of him and they were sufficiently clever to state from his face whether it's a good day or bad day. They used to think if his mood is not good, then their day is going to be bad. The third stanza, full well they laughed with counterfeited glee at all his jokes, for many a joke had he. Full well the busy whisper, circling round, conveyed the dismal tidings when he frowned. Here the poet expresses in this stanza that the schoolmaster ran his school very strictly. In the first line, full well they laughed with counterfeited glee. The poet expressed that he had many jokes, but they were old jokes. The children laughed at his jokes even though the jokes were not so funny or the children could not understand the jokes. Yet they used to laugh at it. In the third line, full well the busy whisper circling round. If they noticed any sign of anger on his face, they would spread the news throughout the classroom. So the schoolmaster was famous because of his strictness and knowledge. The fourth stanza, yet he was kind, or if severe in aught, the love he bore to learning was in fault. The village all declared how much he knew. It was certain he could write and cipher too. Here in the first line, yet he was kind, or if severe in aught, it means though the schoolmaster was strict, although he was very kind and at heart and helping natured person. The second line, the love he bore to learning was in fault. It gives the meaning like this. Master had a fault that he used to love learning things. He was particularly pretending to be a scholar. The third line, the village all declared how much he knew. It means one day the villagers decided to test him for his wisdom. And the fourth line, it was certain he could write and cipher too. It means master was able to write and solve the secret messages and solve the mathematical problems such as more complex as well as calculating liquid in a barrel or rainfall. In the fifth stanza, lands he could measure, terms and tides presage, and even the story ran that he could gauge. In arguing too, the person owned his skill, for even though vanquished, he could argue still. Here, poet highlights the qualities of a schoolmaster. The poet highlighted the qualities of the schoolmaster. Master had the ability to measure, mark the boundaries of the field, and he could predict the weather, find the dates of religious festivals. The fourth line, for even though vanquished, he could argue still. It means he had a skill of arguing, even he lost at something. It means talking. He had a skill. He had a skill of talking to fight back. In the last stanza, while words of learned length and thundering sound amazed the gazing rustics ranged around, and still they gazed, and still the wonder grew, that one small head could carry all he knew. So in the first line we see here, while words of learned length and thundering sound, the way he talked and strengthened his voice made the villagers get surprised. Villagers started staring at him. They wondered how he can do so many things with a single head. He had the trick of impressing the innocent villagers, and he was a great scholar. In the last two lines, and still they gazed, and still the wonder grew, that one small head could carry all he knew. Means village people accepted that he was really knowledgeable person. At the end, we can say that the pen portrait of the village schoolmaster is a humorous and at the same time loving. Children, I hope you understood the poem, The Village Schoolmaster. Thank you.